we can talk about how frustrating it is to be,
A Sharks fan?
well, to once again be presented with a Sharks team where the errors seem glaring, but the team dialogue seems to be like, no, no, but it's okay. Don't worry.
It's just fine. We just need more from the top guys. That's all. That's what we're missing.
And, like, it's exhausting to continue to have an organization that has glaring, obvious problems that the entire league and fan base sees, but they're just like, Lorido, no, don't worry. We got Carlson, he's cool.
I mean, he's not uncool. Look at that. Look at that flow. Um. All right. Did this work? Yes. Look at that flow. Okay. We are streaming. All right. I'm going to start our recording, and yeah, I'm gonna kind of let you set the stage for what we talk about. Because I don't know. This week was kind of all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's bad goaltending and the loss to the Blues, then good goaltending and a shootout win, which is the only way the Sharks are allowed to win games. And
Mhm.
then there was actually, honestly, like I think the main thing I want to talk about is I feel like the game against the Wild that they lost 4-1 was the game in which they probably played most consistently and best, and then just didn't get the bounces. That was kind of my feeling. I don't know if you felt the same way, but that's where I'm gonna kind of lead it.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see. Start recording. All right. One sip of coffee.
I have tea.
All right. I'm set if you are.
Yep, yep.
Okay, great. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 155, I think. You may have noticed that I am not your host, Alex. I am instead your guy who is the cynic of the podcast, Ben, sitting in as the host here. But fortunately for everybody listening, we do have the dulcet baritone voice of Colin coming in live-ish from Sweden. Say hello, Colin.
Who gave you the cynical crown?
I mean, everybody, I think, but me also. Anyway, um, so yeah, we had a pretty solid week of Sharks hockey since we got 3 games in to sort of observe, what this team is or isn't at this point. And there is, of course, a game later today, so we'll talk a little bit about kind of what we're looking for that when we get the chance. But I thought today I'd mostly focus us on talking about the games since there were 3 of them, and I think that they will lead us through, the topics that we want to cover. So with that, with nothing, no real preamble this time, I'm going to jump right to talking about, this week was 2 games against the Blues and the first of 2 games against the Wild. And let's take a look at that first game. So the Sharks, just to spoil it, the Sharks did lose this game 5-4. Um, let's talk about kind of your feeling on the game in general rather than the outcome, Colin.
So we've already talked about how this Sharks team should be able to beat anybody.
Wait,
And
should
this
they be able
game.
to?
Oh, no, no, no. So, like, this team can beat any team. Like, I think this team can beat any team in the league. Can they beat them in a series? No,
Hmm.
no, they can't. But can they take a couple games? Absolutely. Could they take a series like on a run? Probably. But will they? I don't think so. Um, and to me, this game was okay, this is the Sharks team that will ride or die and could possibly just pull that win out in the last moment. And we got burned. And if you look at the heat chart on the scoring and all the shots, it's exactly the spot that we're like, this looks like it's a problem.
Yeah, so this was a game that looked to me anyway like the games we'd seen up to this point from the Sharks this season, and very reminiscent of what we saw last season, which was iffy goaltending, not much focus on team defense, not particularly strong play from several of the lines. It wasn't. Fortunately, the Blues were happy to give up some goals in this game too, and not look particularly good. And I think, as you say, of course, the Sharks will win games in this league. I mean, it's a league somewhat of parity, and it's also a game where wins really can't be predicated just by luck. I mean, as we've talked about a lot on this podcast over the years, the NHL is probably the most luck-oriented league out there going, right? That said, I don't think it was luck that kind of determined the outcome of this game. I think this, again, it looked a lot like the Sharks we've seen so far and for a while, right? To me, no real discipline, no real defensive plan, etc. And I think actually what's interesting about it is the games that followed this, we did start to see maybe what could be a slightly, better is not quite the right word, but maybe a team that
more
could
responsible.
That's a great word, actually. Yeah, responsible, a more responsible team. And I think actually what's really challenging for us, since we're only, what is it? We're 7 games into the season now, or am I thinking ahead too far? 5 games in? 5 games in, right? 5 games in, right? I mean, there's not too much we can really take away from 5 games, particularly in a season without a lot of preseason games, without any preseason games, and etc. So, yeah, go ahead.
We're halfway through, because most people whose like stated opinion I respect usually say 10 games, and you sort of have a picture of what your team is. So we're halfway through the report card, and like it's not the worst I've seen this team play.
Right.
That's my positive takeaway. And oh my God, we have some young skaters who are surprisingly good and surprisingly like not a massive liability. So, yay, there's some cool stuff. But yeah, like for this game specifically, just the big open slot with no defender seeming to care if the other team takes a position or gets a body in front of our goalie. And this game highlighted this, and this game also highlighted the fact that this team can actually score when it gets its shit together.
Yeah, I think what makes it hard to even 5 games into the season also evaluate is that the team has been sort of moving young guys in and out of the lineup. This game saw, for no reason I can really understand, Frederick Hondemark, come into the lineup.
Who wasn't trash, and he's not young though.
Right.
I thought he's 27.
Yeah.
So,
so when I say young guys in and out of the lineup, it's more often that a young guy is going to head out, and a never was is going to get a chance here. And again, like an individual game is not enough to ever evaluate an individual player, right? So. This is going to take me to a rant a little bit later in this podcast, but go ahead.
Wait, maybe I'm gonna set you off because I need to check something. Was this Shimmick's first game back?
I think it might have been. Yes, I think it might have been Shimmick's first game back too.
Yep. So our defense looks invisible unless it's Carlson or Burns doing something kind of cool or really like scary, if not just outright terrible.
I
Um,
yeah, I sort of
like they're
agree.
invisible. Like you ask me who's on our defense, I'm like, Carlson, Burns. Well, we're still playing Vlasic. I don't really know
Oh
who
God,
is on our
that's gonna take me
defense.
on a rant. Actually, yeah, keep going.
Well, but our teams our team seems to disappear the closer it gets to our own goal. And the biggest names that they're talking about, and like the most expensive names on our team, become worse and worse the closer they get into our, into our crease. And it's terrible to watch right now because it feels by design, and our defense feels forgettable in the defensive zone by design. And it's only when they're pinching do I notice somebody, and a lot of times I don't notice them for good reasons. And
Yeah.
it just, yeah, it feels like a ragtag group that is playing half a plan and just becomes completely invisible otherwise.
Well, I mean, I certainly have been on the Mark Edward Vlasic is becoming a pylon train for a while, and I started to kind of notice something worse about that as we moved through this week's games. So maybe it'll make sense to just kind of close the door on this loss to the Blues. I want to say one other thing about this really quickly because I think this was a game in which Kane took a dumb penalty, then a dumber penalty, and then a dumbest penalty, which really set me off because again, we've talked a little bit about one of the things I'm looking for in this season is to actually
No, no, no,
see
no, 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 no.
that was not this game.
The no, the Evander Kane is like takes his average penalty minutes to like 4 a game or something. Next game.
Okay,
Next
that's
game is Evander
yeah, you're
Kane
right.
being
This was not the one. Yep. Okay, never mind. So we will talk about
no.
that, but it wasn't this one.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we can put a pin in this. So yeah, I'll just repeat myself. This game highlighted both the really good things about this team and the really bad things about this team. Um, and it was really cool to see a lot of players show up for goals. We had what? We had Couture doing Couture stuff. LeBanc,
Wait,
Burns, Hurdle.
he made up getting punched in the
Or
face for
sorry.
being a conservative?
Come on.
Sorry.
Come
I'm
on.
trying to delete it.
Let's get into hockey mode now. And we should keep an eye on Logan as the games go on, especially in the Minnesota game, I believe it is. So
Sure,
yeah, this
sure.
game. It's nice to see us getting points around the team, but yeah, this game was fast and loose and good, but also bad. And our goaltending looks solid.
Wait, in the 5-4 game? Or are you talking
Well,
about further on?
I think in the 5-4 game, our goaltending looks solid. I think Dubnyk looked good. I think he's got
Hmm.
like how many times can a team screen a goaltender? So it's hard to be a goaltender when two teams are screening you. And like I think he had a good game. I think our goaltending has actually been like consistently not fucking horseshit this week. So
All right. Yeah, I have to admit that, this is far enough away from this game that I can't be 100% sure how I felt about it at the time. So, um,
I think Dubnik, I think he did a good job and he got sold out hard.
okay. All right. Well, let's actually move then to a game that the Sharks actually did win because it went to the shutout or shootout. Sorry. Um, yeah. So the Sharks moved on or stuck around to play the Blues a second time, and played ultimately a game in which they got a couple points. I'm not sure I would say it was a fantastic performance because the Blues sort of dominated, possession until the third period. And then, of course, in the third period, it was tied up 1-1 the whole time. So it was really, just both teams kind of, I think, probably mostly playing for OT, right? Let's each get a point and head out.
I was gonna ask you about that. Like, was this the most boring 3-on-3 like
Oh
overtime
God.
you've ever seen?
Oh God, I'm glad you brought that up. So, we've been talking about how much we like 3-on-3 overtime for a while, and I think that's mainly been because, up until maybe this year, teams have actually kind of felt like they were being aggressive on on the 3-on-3, and they were just kind of like, all right, you three just go out there and have fun and try to score. And I'm glad you brought this up, because something I noticed in the Sharks OT game so far, and particularly in this one, is that there's actually, coaches have managed to fuck up 3-on-3. They've got players, if there's even a chance that you're not going to be able to hold the zone, guys are just heading back to center ice and killing time and regrouping, and then, sort of going back into the zone, and then, oh, nope, we didn't get what we wanted, so let's back out. And yeah, 3-on-3 is getting boring. And it feels like we're going to see more shootouts, which is like the worst case scenario to me. Now, is this in line with what you were seeing, Colin, or why you asked?
Yeah, it was. And how long did it take you to cotton on? Because I admit it probably took me longer than the sharper tools watching. And I was like, on the third turnaround, it just struck me. I was like, oh, those sons of bitches. Okay. On one hand, I felt kind of happy that our team was like, yeah, we can take the shootout. I'm like, okay, I had like that confidence. On the other hand, yeah, this is clock management, like, kneeling on the snap in football. Like, I don't like this.
Right. It's playing not to lose, right? It's the same thing that always ruins hockey, is when coaches can throttle the life out of something by creating schemes and plans that prevent losing rather than, driving winning.
I mean, I hate to say this, but like the Kings winning that cup where they're just playing that strangle, score 2 goals and strangle the other team. Those were still good hockey games. Like, they were good to watch. I hate the Kings, and I hate them because of those series, but it was good hockey. Whereas this is just obnoxious. This is the worst parts of the All-Star games.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is that, like, those Kings teams, they were at least fighting for their lives to defend a lead. And, when you're fighting for your life to defend a lead, you're giving up shots. What that Kings team was able to do was really prevent those shots from coming from dangerous places. And, they had an athletic goaltender who could, make up for an occasional, crazy shot exactly right. This is not that, right? The reason this sucks even more, and by the way, I didn't really like that Kings hockey myself, but, whatever.
No, like, the games were good.
They could be. They looked exciting. They may not have been.
The games are good.
Right? It looked exciting to see a bunch of shots until you realize that those shots were, coming from the outside and very low chance of ever going in, and then you watch the Kings throttle your team to death. Not that ever happened, to the Sharks. But this is not that, right? This is, nobody's got a lead. Somebody wants to score, somebody should want to score, and they don't. I did, this was the Sharks' second shootout win of the year. One game wasn't enough really for me to notice it, and I don't know if it was as noticeable in the first one, but I definitely noticed that both teams were doing this in this, and it looks very different from the 3-on-3 we got used to, prior. And
there's no longer any throwaway points. There's no longer any out of conference points, and it's 56 games versus 80, 82 or 83.
Yeah,
it would have been with. But like, it's still every point is a point out of the bucket for your
Right.
division, and it matters. So you're seeing that strategic mind come in. They're treating this like a long tournament, which it is. So,
Well, I mean, and that makes sense for the Blues, I think, right? Because I think we agree the Blues have a better chance at the playoffs than the Sharks do, right?
ooh, actually, so the thing that also occurred to me during this game is I guess this is where all the negative muttering out the Blues I'm hearing is coming from, because man, this team had our number in the first game. They basically need to come out and do the same thing while shutting down the neutral zone, and they didn't. And like, no, like this, the Blues have some problems.
The Blues
Um,
do. I totally agree with that. The other thing I noticed as we got through the week is that something I complained about in the first couple games was that the Sharks defenders were trying to hit home run passes, through the neutral zone to the far blue line, and those were just getting intercepted like crazy. And I think the
yep.
first Blues game we continued to see that. What I really liked as I saw towards the end of the week is that I think the Sharks moved away from. It seemed like they moved away from that. It seemed like they brought the two forwards back to the red line, or the center ice, and weren't they were trying to do a much more structured short pass version of the breakout, and I felt like that not only is better for the Sharks getting out of the zone. I think that left the Sharks in better position to defend when they did turn the puck over. So
Hmm.
when we see that this game ended up going to OT because it was 1-1, and of course the next game also was pretty tight until pretty much garbage time. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that hey, the Sharks weren't turning the puck over in the neutral zone when guys were way far the fuck away, from the puck, right? And hey, it turns out if you're not, giving up easy 2-on-1s all the time, your goalie can potentially not be the guy who is responsible for stopping lots of great shots. Um,
Yeah. How is that Jones save percentage for you?
well, well, I mean, I think so. In the Blues game, yes, we got Jones back, and he actually looked pretty good. Uh,
Did he though? Like
I thought so.
it
Yeah, I think
was
he
it
looked
was
fine.
commented on. Um, and I agree with this. Like back old school, like just murderer Jones looked really, really quiet when he played. Very minimal movement, quiet body, quick hands. He looked a bit more like that. He looked quiet and confident, but he looked kind of slow. And maybe that's just him finally like working the rust out while getting back into form. But I'm glad we have a 1-2 combination with goalies who both of them seem to be present and, you know, pretty steady.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to say either of them is good. I just am trying to say I think in this game, Jones looked
Yeah,
pretty good. I
yeah,
mean, he
consistent.
he faced 20 shots, mostly in the first and second periods. He stopped all but one. Um, it's not like there wasn't an occasional 2-on-1 in this game too. It just they weren't always like 4-on-1s like they might be under the old system. And the Sharks gave up the sort of possession gave up possession for most of this game, right? So the Blues spent a lot of time in the Sharks zone. The other thing I want to note here is Dylan Gambrell checked back in for this game, and this was the first time we saw him. Hendemark checked back out. Also checking out for no good reason was Noah Gregor. So I just want to and Nazin I think checked in for this game. Overall I felt like again this game we started to see maybe a structure that the Sharks can get some success from even without a ton of talent below the top six. Um, Again, I thought Carlson actually seemed to be very, active and good at both zones in this particular game, and then the one we're going to talk about next as well. I guess what I would say is, if this game and the next one we're going to talk about point towards how the Sharks will play the rest of the season, the Sharks can win any game, like you were saying, right? If this, this game and the next one we're going to talk about were instead just, part of the normal ups and downs you see in a season and just, sort of luck driven, then who knows? I have a question. I have a question for you, Colin.
Sure.
So Nikolai Knizhov has played every game, and I haven't had any, major complaints about how he's playing, but I also don't, typically see him doing anything particularly great. Have you formed an impression of Knizhov yet?
He plays on our defense, and he's not Carlson or Burns.
So you haven't noticed him?
Yeah, he's just sort of a ghost. Like Ferraro has stepped up and seems to like step out of the void to make plays and intercept passes and like help with the counterattack and sometimes jump on in the rush. Kuznetsov, like he's there and he's I will say he's unfortunately the person who is the far end of our ice time distribution is totally screwed up. Like he's the guy who they sit for most of the game when we should be skating our roster more balanced than we are.
Right.
Especially in our defense, especially when we have guys who are kind of specialists now. And when they get to fill that role, they do well. But we're just throwing them out there every moment, every time. And yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy because our defense just seems to be a mess, and he's part of the mess, so it's hard to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is, he doesn't seem to, what I'd say about Ferraro is he's fast, he'll get physical, and I've seen him kind of grow quite a bit. I feel like across, the year and change that he's been given ice time. I don't know what he ultimately is because he's paired with Burns, so, that's. It seems to mostly have been paired with Burns while they kind of round Šimek back into shape. But he seems good. He seems solid to me, honestly.
Like he's like, well, shit. He's small. Like he plays big for 5'11", but
right.
I'm trying to think of a good comparison for Ferraro, and it's hard because he's basically the other guy. It's like, okay, yeah, Lidstrom was amazing. He was the best defender ever. Who did he play with? Oh, right, that other guy. That other guy was really good, too.
Do you know who he reminds me of just in his skating? Not obviously in his points production so far. Dan Boyle.
Okay, who? I don't disagree.
He doesn't puck handle like Dan could. That's the difference. But
no. I see. You're putting him on the same road, just not as advanced.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dan Boyle was a special player, right? I mean, he could shoot. He could puck handle.
Amazing.
I'm just saying. When I see Ferraro's speed and the way he uses his speed defensively, and that he's not a big guy, right? He is kind of a smaller guy, and he's a college guy. Before he hit the NHL. That's who he reminds me of. I don't think you'll ever see, Mario Ferraro, deke his way through a defense like Dan Boyle could. Because I think Ferraro is somewhat bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Dan Boyle, no. I understand what you're getting at, and I do agree. I was going to be like, okay, yeah, Ferraro does have a little bit of like Paul Coffey to his play. But not anywhere near that degree of playing.
Yeah.
He doesn't have their range.
Right. I mean, he could grow into it. I mean, it's not like Dan Boyle emerged fully formed into the NHL either. But you know,
Sure.
I don't think the Sharks have had a lot of defensemen like Ferraro in the sense that he's not the biggest. The Sharks have tended to really like those big, tall, bruising guys, right? And
Yeah.
many of those guys can't skate. So when I think of what Ferraro brings to the table is he's mobile, right? He doesn't have Dan Boyle's just shot, but he's mobile like him, I guess. Uh, anyway,
Well, he's mobile like the modern breed of defensemen are.
right.
Show me a defender who's coming out and who's been drafted in like the last 6 years, who's coming out and like, wow, this guy is great and isn't high mobility. Power forwards have been like evolving back into the two-way defender, and it's cool. I mean, I love watching guys like Gerard skate on Avalanche. Was it Hughes on Vancouver? Like
Right.
there's just crazy skating defensemen everywhere now,
Yeah.
and Ferraro's another one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have the offensive upside of a lot of those guys, which is why he wasn't drafted as high as those guys. I think you make a great point that I think the NHL as a whole has moved away from the non-mobile, stay-at-home defensemen who can't shoot, or at least those guys you can get later in the draft because they're just not as valuable, right?
Well, I think you need them, but these guys have to be smart. Like they need to be really good positioning, and they need to be really, really good as like a partner pair. Because you get some big guys out there who are just big and scary. Chara, as much as I don't like the guy, he plays off his partners really well. Like he
Yeah.
makes his partners better
But
by knowing what he can't
to
do.
your point, Chara is a guy from a different generation. I mean,
Sure. Oh
I
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
I don't think. I mean, also he's unique, right? I mean, he is a unique physical specimen. It's like saying, Chris Pronger. It's like trying to say that you wouldn't draft a guy like if a guy like who looked like Chara or Pronger emerged from junior, absolutely he'd get picked high up, right? But the difference is that they used to be a lot of guys who looked like those guys but didn't play like those guys who people would take a flyer on
Oh yeah, yeah.
because they were big. I mean, and Sharks particularly. I mean, I'm thinking of Nick Petrecki as a one of those
Yep.
big time busts that never developed, and just because he was big and strong and could skate, they thought oh we'll eventually fix him. The
Well,
thing
you have,
is, go ahead.
I was gonna say you have skaters like Bogosian, who's very much like the old guard.
And sucks.
'Cause he's a big old boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean,
Um,
but that's a great example, right? I think Bogosian and there's a couple of other examples of it of guys who were drafted high, have been pretty mediocre, and have moved around because the teams have realized, oh shit, this guy sucks. We should probably try to get some dumb team like Vancouver to trade for him. Not that Vancouver traded for Bogosian specifically, but they did trade for a bad defenseman whose name is escaping me. You know, you just don't that kind of defenseman just doesn't have draft value, and shouldn't really have draft value anymore because there are hybrid guys like you're saying who are available in the top 15 that have a much better chance of, as you say, driving a modern NHL defensive core, right? I mean, you can find the guys who used to be drafted in the first and second round on free agency from overseas. Hello, Radim Shemek, or in the sixth round. Hello, Justin Braun, and on, right? Like if you want somebody who's just going to be all around responsible, and you can teach them to skate like the Sharks did with Braun, then that's all you need, right?
well, yeah. If Lessig had Burns' speed,
And shot.
we Oh, I don't care about the shot.
Oh,
I just want Vlasic to be able to keep up with Carlson.
oh yeah, and I have
And
a rant about that when we get to the next game.
well, okay, so maybe I'm going to tee your rant up because you can take exception to this. In this game, we saw Sorensen score a goal,
Hmm.
and this was an effort and drive goal to me.
Hmm.
This was a
This is the one where he left his
Sorensen,
feet to push it in, right?
yeah,
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 that
where he was
great
like
effort
falling, and yeah,
move there. Yeah, absolutely.
like it seems like Sorensen is as bitter and pissed off as the rest of us have been that he just can't seem to get that angle, get that bounce, get that thing.
Yeah.
He's constantly been not even a inch off at times, like, feet off, but you realize it was just almost. And he dug deep and he put the effort in to get this goal. And I'm a little pissed off at Nieto for the next game. But I will say the team seems to be putting effort down. The flux and like all the new people on the team, I feel like there's a bunch of people trying to lay it down and actually like dig in and prove their place, prove who they are on the team. The bank has like took a couple murderous shots in these last two games with the Blues, and he fought through them. But it was very much LeBanc being shown, okay, yeah, dude, you can't fight some of these guys. You have to learn to live between them. So the team's putting in effort, and I like watching that. But I think this is also the game where Couture injured his wrist, and they haven't talked or announced it yet, but he seemed a little off, because this is also the game, I think, where he went on a back check, broke up the play, but got his stick caught in the net and tweaked his wrist.
Hmm.
And he was kind of funky in the Minnesota game.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the Minnesota game because most of what I want to rant about is really encapsulated within this game. Um,
Okay, I've got one thing in this game before
okay.
you can just go nuts on it. I felt like we had a good point where it was 2-1, and Nieto and Sorensen had not quite a 2-on-1, but they had a scoring opportunity break.
Hmm.
And Sorensen moved the puck up, passed to Nieto, and Nieto had the pass back to Sorensen, and he takes the shot. And it was just one of those opportunities where you're like, that that is Nieto. That is the bad side of Nieto. Him having the one goal, looking for the second goal, and not seeing the pass for Sorensen to tie the game up and sort of give us a chance. And after
Actually, I
that
think
point,
that
I
was
was like,
I think that actually would have given the Sharks the lead at the moment if it's the one I'm thinking of
"Oh, okay,
because
then yeah, that would have
because
given us lead."
the first period was okay. So let me start by the narrative that came out of this game. The narrative that came out of this game was that the Sharks played pretty well, and the top guys didn't step up, and that was Bogner's line about the game is we need the top guys on this team to actually produce. Which it's pretty standard coaching pablum to just say that the problem is that some guys just didn't bury the puck or whatever. So it's what you expect coaches to say, and it's meaningless. So I'm not going to get too caught up in that. But what I will say that is kind of true is my perspective on this game was that basically every line the Sharks had was countered by the Wild's
Mm-hmm.
lines, except the fourth line, and
Yeah,
that can be good if at the same time you're holding their top lines off the board. Uh, but the issue I had with this, and I actually posted this during the game, was that if your best looks of the game are Nieto, Sorensen, you're probably not going to win that game, and you're lucky to have a goal. And Nieto did get that great goal, but not on a great shot. When it first happened, it looked like he had like gone top corner or something like that. But as they played the replays, he basically just shuffleboarded that puck to the pipe.
Hey,
So it's not like
it got there.
it got there, it got in. I mean, whatever it takes. I'm not sure that's what he intended to do. Maybe it was, but as you say, then the Sharks had a chance to actually take a 2-on-1 to go up 2-1, and when that puck dies on Matt Nieto's stick, it's pretty much what you would expect, right? Because they're fourth liners. Nieto's never had a great shot. And as you say, you want your fourth line really, if they're going to score goals, to be doing it through effort and
Teamwork.
teamwork.
Like,
But as you talked about Sorensen's goal in the previous game, where he'd score a goal or die trying, right? Like off his feet, collecting a loose puck and pushing it, past the goaltender. They're not skill guys. You don't want to see them on 2-on-1s because they don't know what to do. They're not capable of doing the things that the top lines would. So
but
I guess
at least taking the second dump off pass when like to me it was a fourth line. There's a teamwork goal where it was pass up. Nieto has it. He's got the time and space. The goalie sort of commits, and he's got the open pass lane back, and he doesn't pass. And at that point, I'm like, that's the game. Here we go.
Well, I mean, pass it or put the puck low off the goalie's pads, which is the thing the Sharks have never done and should do more of, but whatever. So there's a bigger issue, I think, in this. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think Bogner had a point, but it's not a thing you can just get the team to do, right? It's not like you could be like, guys, just try harder. Top line, just score. That's all you need, right? So when a coach says that shit, that's kind of what it sounds like they're basically saying is, our poor dumb top line just wasn't able to do it. There needs to be more effort, right? Or jam, as Kevin Kurz would call it, since he's just as dumb as your average NHL coach. But it is true that if it's your fourth line that is getting those looks, you're probably in trouble, right? And I think go ahead.
Well, the problem is he's not wrong. Carlson skates 18 or 28 minutes and produces 3 shots. Yeah, he gets an assist and he gets like a first assist. But like it's in 28 minutes, so it's very easy to point at that and be like, "Hey, he should be doing more."
You're right.
My counter argument is,
but not in the way you think.
Well, my counter argument is that if those 20 minutes are all offensive face-off starts and like offensive zone time, then holy shit, like that's amazing zone time. And wow, Carlson, how dare you not do that? This is Carlson just trucking his ass up and down the ice on an ankle that, maybe only a couple, months old at this point.
Okay.
Who knows?
So I spent a lot of time in this game taking a look at what's really holding Erik Karlsson back. It is having to pass to Marc-Edouard Vlasic. So the Sharks have put themselves in a terrible conundrum. Marc-Edouard Vlasic is not an NHL caliber, top 4 defenseman anymore.
He's official.
In my opinion, yes.
The cliff dive
he is at best a 6. He's bad. He can't catch a pass. He can't shoot. He doesn't have the speed. If he could just stay in front of the goalie the whole game, then he'd have value. But obviously,
wait. Are you telling me the reason our defense is so soft and so bad is we're trying to not make Pickles look or feel bad?
No. So it's not that the defense, and again, this game and the previous game, the defense actually, I think, played a pretty solid game for the for the most part, and didn't leave their goalie hung out to dry, and played responsibly, and participated in an effective breakout with short passes, to the blue line, and then to center ice, and then into the zone. So what I'm saying is that Erik Karlsson cannot be effective with a shitty shooter as his partner, with a guy who can't catch passes as his partner. What we have maybe missed, I think, and it just really started to crystallize as I watched, Marc-Edouard Vlasic bumblefuck, a pass back to the point that turned into a 2-on-1 that he defended effectively, thank God. Also noticed is, when the puck goes D to D, you don't have a dangerous shot for Karlsson to capitalize on, right? So the reason he's not getting assists is half of his passes go to a guy who can't shoot, never has been able to shoot. But the reason Karlsson is paired with Vlasic is because the only one who has the speed and smarts to compensate for how bad Vlasic is right now, at least from the Sharks' perspective, is Karlsson, right? Now, I disagree. I think you could put Ferraro with him or Knyzhov with Vlasic and put him in, bottom pairing minutes and just be okay. In fact, It would be a lot better if one of those young guys who has something approximating a shot was paired with Karlsson.
So wait a second. You're saying Vlasic, as he stands right now, is Douglas Murray when we traded him bad?
I mean, I think Douglas Murray still had some life in him just because he could, clobber a dude.
Ooh, god damn.
I mean, Vlasic? Like I said, Vlasic still has the same instincts and stick work he's always had, but he is a broken down shell of the player that was legitimately should have won a Norris Trophy for doing what defensemen actually are supposed to do. He used to contribute to the scoring, right? Because he could at least, pass. But I'm not even sure he can do that anymore.
Well, he also contributed to scoring by not letting other teams' top players score.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he was the defender other teams' top scoring forwards would be like, just don't let me. I don't want to play him.
Right. Because he not only had the stick work, he had the speed to be in position to constantly be forcing guys to the outside. And yeah, exactly.
And he would usually play with somebody who could either be faster than him or who would wreck you if you went near them.
Sure.
And to give Alex some credit when he's not here, he did say way back when how he hoped we'd get through the repaying of Vlasic without killing ourselves or putting ourselves in a bad situation. And I think this is the situation he was hoping we would avoid somehow.
Well, I mean, hope is not a strategy, and it's clearly the Sharks were hoping that he would have an abnormal aging curve. The Sharks got burned, because they have had a couple of guys who have just laughed at the aging curve over the years. I mean, the Vlasic contract looked bad from the moment it was signed. It's not like it was controversial that this was a bad contract. The problem is that the Burns contract is also bad, and the Erik Karlsson contract is going to be bad as long as you hitch him to a boat anchor. So I hope the Sharks figure this out, that Vlasic just needs to be reduced in minutes and paired with a young guy so that you can get the value you need from Karlsson. Until they do, then Karlsson is going to get blamed for every pass that bounces off of Vlasic's stick. He's going to get blamed for every assist he doesn't get because Vlasic, toddler shoots the puck wide of the net, and that turns into a turnover, and off they go again. And it's not fair to Karlsson. If you want to get the most from Karlsson, you have to put the players who can catch and shoot with him. And, the Sharks are not doing that. And I don't know that they will. Because they're stuck in this world where, Vlasic is making the most money, so he's clearly a top 4 player, right? It's a sunk cost fallacy. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. To me, it's just another symptom of what we've been bitching about for like 3 years now, 4 maybe, of the team isn't trying to actually move on and build into anything. They're just trying to like roll out the hits and hope it works. So yeah, I would love to see them actually find a new younger pairing to play with Carlson who can, both keep up and, watch Carlson's back. Have a bigger person who won't be a liability, who can basically just learn to be Carlson's, hockey butler. And that would be great. And it would show the team's actually trying to build into something. But no, we're just sort of doing this other thing. Just like it's great that at least Hurdle is finding his place, and we're getting Leonard in there and having great success, and Meyer is finding his niche. But yeah, we really need to be looking to like flip Couture because I don't see team chemistry forming around him.
Well, I mean, as noted before, there's only 3 teams that Logan has to accept a trade to, and who knows who he would choose. So if we're hoping that this team can get fixed by a trade,
Oh no! Like this team is this like a microcosm for the greater world around us. This team will require multiple years to be fixed.
yeah.
But
I mean, okay. Look, again, this is a league where anyone can win any given night. This is a league where hot goalie play can take you through a round or two of the playoffs. I don't think this team has to be as bad as it is. I just think that this team needs to get over some of the things that it thinks it is and emphasize playing younger, faster players in every position. Emphasize maximizing, the contracts you're locked into that aren't terrible yet, like Carlson. And minimize the damage of the bad mistakes you've made in handing, $7 million, 6 more year contract to Vlasic by taking his minutes away. He's not doing what you need him to do in the top 4. He's just not. And in fact, you could make I think you could make the overall defense better with him in the bottom 6. It's probably unfair of me to say he's a 6. I mean, he probably is the 5th best defenseman on this team right now.
Do you think there is any trade value on Vlasic though?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
Not with that track.
I mean, he's got a no movement clause,
Yeah.
so there's no moving Vlasic. So no,
Well,
no. I don't think
yeah.
I don't think he'd agree to go, and I don't think
he's a buyout or a Barry.
I mean, he's I don't even see a buyout with him because the math is even worse than it was for Jones. So, unless the Sharks could work some magic and maybe, Montreal wanted Vlasic or something. And again, unfortunately, I think this is just, like we would say about sort of rosterbation. I think it's
Yeah, no.
I don't think there's much value in, saying that maybe somebody will trade for these guys. Again, you have to work with what you've got, and there's a version of this lineup that is better with Vlasic paired with somebody younger and playing fewer minutes.
Yeah.
And giving, unfortunately, that means taking a flyer on a guy with a rebuilt knee, maybe Šimek, or Ferraro's already getting top 4 minutes, so it's really then down to Knyzhov, basically. Like, another problem here is that the Sharks, in a bottom pairing with Vlasic, are going to have to play another left-handed defenseman. So somebody's going to be playing on their offside, and it's going to be somewhat ineffective. But again, if it's 12 minutes a night, then it is 12 minutes a night.
Well, I mean, the Sharks are spending something like 24-25% of their total cap on 2 defensive players. So these guys need to at least be half of the top 4. And otherwise they need to just work around and, as you say, shelf around and figure out what they have.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say, they don't have to be, right? Like, you have to evaluate guys separate from the mistakes you've made in paying them. And that's what I'm saying the Sharks have to do here, right? They've made a mistake in how they allocate their money, but there's no way to fix that within the context of the current season, the payment part of it. So what you have to do is disconnect what they're making from what they do on the ice. And Karlsson and Burns probably do still warrant top 4 minutes because at least they produce offensively for both teams.
Sure.
Well, particularly Burns. Go ahead.
Well, so okay, let's put Burns and Kane on the same forward line and just call it the Rafi Torres line and watch the penalty minutes stack up.
Okay, I think the Sharks, again, if they had done other things, would absolutely be better off with Burns as a forward. We're never going to see Burns as a forward again. So, and he's also one of only 2 right-handed defensemen on the roster. So, so that really does prevent, I think, that.
Oh, I love that Alice isn't here, so I can go off on this stuff. Now, every word from the coaching staff and from the broadcasting crew is basically all offense, all aggression, all the time. Let's get the defensive players activating forward, and let's just go, 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 go. Oh, damn, poor goalie didn't have that one. Let's go score a goal again. And I just, do you embrace it? Do you just get on board with this like ride or die mindset and just accept that we're going to have games like we had with Minnesota where the other team's just like, okay, we can just shut this down? Or do we wish our goalies to have, a fun time and not have to deal with that?
Again, I mean, I don't think we have to live with it. I think that there are players on this roster that you could be emphasizing playing who would have the speed. I mean, look at the last game. Also, like Timo Meier is the Sharks' probably best forward, if not second best forward, and he had 14 minutes of ice time. Like, there's other shit going on here where this team is not maximizing what they can do. It's play decisions, it's lines, it's minutes decisions, it's pairings. I mean, everything is fucking broken. But okay, not broken, but it's suboptimal. There is an optimal version of this lineup that challenges for a playoff spot, but we're not seeing it, and I don't know that the coaches are willing to make the changes they'd have to make, right? Like asking Vlasic to pair with a young guy may not be something that they can do inside the locker room or are afraid to do inside the locker room. We just don't know, right? We know that, Vlasic is the guy who drove having power play time when DeBoer was coach, which was always the dumbest fucking thing ever because he's just has no place on an NHL power play. But and this is
every time.
And this is an analog to that, right? Putting him with Karlsson and in the offensive zone is like putting him on the power play. I mean, fuck, maybe have him change every time, the Sharks are on their way to the offensive zone with Karlsson taking the puck.
Yes.
Just get off the ice, dude. You have to do. The Sharks have a weird lineup and suboptimal talent, so this is why I didn't think, again, I don't think Bugner is the coach to maximize this team, is because you need a guy who's going to try some funky ass shit to get the most out of this. And most NHL coaches are not willing to do funky ass shit because they come from a culture in which there's one way to play, and let's minimize fun and let's minimize scoring. It's why the good teams fall back into clutching and grabbing and trapping at mid-ice because most coaches in this league are playing not to lose rather than playing to win.
Oh, sure. And like there's something I love about Detroit right now because they are in an open rebuild. Like
Yeah.
They are in a hot garbage and we don't care situation. And like I want to hear the pep talks that Yzerman is giving to Larkin and the other young guys who are going to be sort of prime plus guys once Detroit finally gets their shit together, because like they're openly sucking, and it's like, no, we're not going to change our coach. Why would we? It's not like we're losing because he's bad. We're losing because we suck out loud, and we're fine with that. And so they get to just sort of run their lines and really just sort of see what their players who are decent, what they can do and what they should be trying to do, and they can run different systems if they want. It's kind of relaxing to just accept the suck. And you would hope the Sharks would be like, all right, okay, we kind of need to just really bomb for 1.5 seasons, 2 seasons now, because we need a reboot here.
Sure.
And have a young coach, an unproven coach, or coach by committee or some other insanity, and just do something.
The problem is that the Sharks can't. They structurally cannot because of the contracts they've signed. They can't do it. You can't do that when you've put 20 or 30% of your cap into 3 old defensemen. There's no room to do something like that. It doesn't work.
Sure. Well, sure. The only way out is through. And so we have to just sort of, like, the people that hurt is Hurdle, because that's basically the career that you're burning doing this. Meyer will still be like a seasoned badass vet once you've been bad enough to just draft your way up to something better. If you're even able to manage like hit with, top 10 draft picks.
Right.
No guarantee there. You could just miss every time.
I guess what I was saying, Colin, is so we're looking at this team and what they're doing, and they're clearly not doing that. They're not tanking like Detroit is. They're not going to tank. They're
trying to run for it.
Right. They're not going to tank like Detroit is. So we're not going to see those picks except for when the Sharks are worse than they expect to be. And then, of course, because Doug didn't expect that to happen, that pick goes to a different team. Right?
Don't no. Bad.
Yeah, that's where we are, right? That's where we are.
But that's where we were.
No, it's where we are. You can't get these albatrosses off the roster.
We still have our first rounds moving forward.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
The second round.
But the team isn't playing to tank, and it's never going to play to tank. No, correct. Right. So they're not going to do it. I don't think they're bad enough to compete for that this year. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, who knows?
We didn't expect them to be as bad as they were last year.
Yeah, but that injuries, blah, 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 DeBoer sucks,
sure.
blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't really care to go that direction because it's a 5-year plan. You don't know that the guy you get in the top 10 is going to develop.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So I push that aside for now. I'm looking to optimize this lineup to make it fun rather than what Detroit is, which is a trash fire. Knowing that you're not going to get a number 1 pick out of this team.
So what is a fun,
to me,
what is a fun strategy from this team?
To me, it's optimizing the lineup around what you have. Don't waste this season of Hurdle. Give him, something to do. Don't waste this season of, Logan. Give him something to do. I think there are things you can do that this team at least makes the playoffs. I would not mind watching a playoff round. And you can do that and also develop the young guys like Gregor and Leonard and Gambrell, who I thought, by the way, I want to say this, I thought Gambrell has played well in his 2 games this season. And if he can keep playing well, the Sharks suddenly do have a third line center, which they don't really have center depth right now. So that's what I want to see, because that at least gives us something to root for, is to watch Gregor emerge, Leonard, who already seems like he's fitting in very well you know, kind of shock and surprise people and you know, end up a legitimate top 6 guy right now. You know, give Ferraro and Knyzhov more opportunities to thrive. Fuck, I don't know if Merkley's really ready for it, but he's a right-handed defenseman. Bring him up and throw him into the fire. I don't care. I mean,
Okay,
make this
so
team fun with what you've got. Don't fucking tell me I have to wait 5 years for this team to be fun. I guess is what I'm saying. I think you can do that with what the Sharks have in their system. Go ahead.
no. I think this is a good thing to wrap up on. We can do our
Yeah.
top 3 things to make this Sharks team like fun to watch, fun to watch. Because this last game was not fun to watch. That is one thing I will say.
I thought it was
a drag.
fine. I thought the Minnesota and Sharks game was fine. Again, my main takeaway from it was, well, when your best looks are these this guy again, and then this guy, you're in trouble. But I didn't think it was bad, and I thought there were signs of good things. But it would have been better with Noah Gregor in. I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Oh, okay. All right. So, top 3 things to make watching the Sharks fun this season that the team should do. I'll go off to try to set the tone. I want to see this team play the short, simple passes and eliminate the stretch pass, because I think we're trying to play way too long of a game when we have players who are quick with good hands that can, work through those tight, crowded spaces to get those, breakout opportunities. So the second thing I want to see this team do is like play basics, the basic variants. Like if you're not able to carry the zone, be comfortable doing chip and chase to try to open up the zone, carry on later entries. Like actually play a strategic game with your strategies. Because in these 5 games, we're seeing the Sharks just run into the same pit over and over. Hit the same strategy. If it doesn't work, try to hit it again. It's like, no, mix it up, but mix it up with simple variants. And the last thing to make this Shark season fun is what Ben was saying. Like, play the youth, give them opportunities to get out there, and let's see Leonard, be more active in power plays or penalty kills. Let's see the young players get to actually be part of the team instead of 7 minutes.
Yep. So with that sort of the stage setter, what I did want to note is what we've got ahead of us this week. Obviously today at 5 p.m. Pacific time, the Sharks will play the Wild again. And Nazin, I think, is checking out, and Gregor is checking in, which I'm fine with. Then on Tuesday, we've got a game in Colorado, and then Thursday, another game in Colorado. And then they'll skip the weekend and play their next game after we podcast next. Supposed to be a home game for the Sharks, but it looks like it will be played in Arizona. But we'll talk about that more next week. So yeah, let's close this thing off by hoping that the Sharks can solve the Wild today, which is not an easy thing to do because the Wild are actually, fairly well built. They're 4-1. The Sharks are 2-3.
Yeah, they're surprisingly good, and that new winger they have,
The young guy, yes, from the
Kavanagh
KHL.
or whatever. Yeah,
Kaprizov? Is that what his name is?
Kaprizov, I think.
Yeah. He's great at boarding our players, and then the other team ending up with a goal out of it. So
he's a dirty bird too. They were talking about how he's he has pro experience, and right as they're talking about that, he did the hit you're talking about. It's like, oh, yeah, he's been around.
Yeah, good old NHL refs. Not calling an obvious penalty and then that ending up being a goal against the Sharks. So anyway, yeah, let's hope for maybe the Sharks to get back to shootout win hockey, I guess, this week. You can find our podcast on Spotify and iTunes and pretty much anywhere else you want to look for it. You can find me tweeting on Twitter, obviously, at Circling the Cup. You can find Alex posting mostly on our Facebook page. You can find the podcast not just on those services, but also at circlingthecup.com. We also have a Discord, which if you're interested, just tweet at me and I will post an invite to it. It's mostly about 5 of us, maybe 6 of us, commiserating during games and chatting between games. And besides that, we'll be back next Sunday. Hopefully Alex will be back as our host so I can talk less and smile more, as they would say in Hamilton. I'm going to go ahead and give it a Go Sharks, and Colin, you can close us out with a Go Sharks.
Play well, Sharks. That's all I want. Play well.
Play fast and well. All right, Go Sharks.
No, I'll just go for well. Play well, Sharks.
All right, fair.